Ambassador Gopinath, Pillai, Executive Chairman, Savant, Infocomm, and Chairman, Institute of South Asian Studies, Professor Rajendra Sri Vatsava, Provost and Deputy President, Singapore Management University, Prof. Chan Tha-Yong, Director, Institute of South Asian Studies, Dr. S. Narayan, Head of Research and Visiting Senior Research Fellow, Institute of South Asian Studies, Mr. Vikram Khanna, Associate Editor of the Business Times, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Singapore Management University and the Institute of South Asian Studies, I warmly welcome you to this joint seminar series on challenges and strategies for doing business in India. As you know, the Indian economy is experiencing a cyclical turndown, having recorded a growth rate of only 5% in gross domestic product in 2012-13. There are several challenges facing the economy, including a large physical and external sector imbalances, persistently high inflation, a falling rupee, and low capital inflows. While the growth rate might improve along with an improvement in global economic conditions, it is imperative for India to attract greater foreign investment for correcting the macroeconomic problems. This, however, is not an easy prospect, given that India suffers from the adverse perception of being a difficult place for doing business. Even if the government introduces more investment-friendly policies, and despite the lure of India's large market and increasing purchasing powers of the middle class, adverse perceptions might hold foreign investments back. It is said that navigating the business terrain in India can be difficult without a comprehensive understanding of its socio, political, and business culture. The country is big, and the landscape is diverse. What works in Mumbai may not always work in Bangalore or Chennai. Well, how difficult is it really to do business in India? Is the adverse perception exaggerated, or is India indeed a challenging country for doing business? How important are perseverance and well-planned strategies to succeeding in India? What should be the ideal entry options for foreign investors? What are the sectors that are promising best long-term yields? Today, we have a panel of distinguished experts with hands-on experience of doing business in India and navigating through its policies and procedures, who will share the insights on these and many of other questions on the minds of businessmen and investors. With these opening remarks, let us start the event. We will have each of our three distinguished speakers make their presentations. At the end of the third presentation, we will have a question and answer session, which will be chaired by an equally eminent individual, Mr. Vikram Khanna, Associate Editor to Business Times. It is now my pleasure to invite our first speaker, Ambassador Gopinath Pillai, Executive Chairman, Savant Infocomm, and Chairman of the Institute of South Asian Studies, to share his perspectives on the challenge and strategies for doing business in India. Ambassador Pillai, please.
Good afternoon. I think we should have had Rekha as one of the speakers. Professor Srivastava, Dr. Narayan, Mr. Vikram Khanna, Professor Chan Tha-Yong, ladies and gentlemen. I find the theme of today's seminar, Challenges and Strategies for Doing Business in India, somewhat daunting. It seems to indicate a very prescriptive approach. I'm not sure that I'm qualified to give a prescription. I must confess at the outset that I do not have, to use a term from the Gita, the king's secret for doing business in India. I'm also intimidated by the fact that I'm put together with two very eminent scholars who know India much better than I do, Professor Srivastava and Dr. Narayan. Now, having stated my limitations, I would go on to share with this very distinguished group some of my experiences in India, the experiences of my group. My group, let me define as just four shareholders, four friends who got together to look at India. Each one has varied their background, varied experience. They got together and being subjected to the India fever contagion, which spread with the help of our former Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, we decided to look at India. I will share with you experience of three different projects that I was involved in. The difficulties, the benefits, the challenges, the strategies and then make some general remarks. The first one was a small outsourcing company, IT outsourcing company, which was owned by a group of British investors. They had run into problems because they expanded too fast. They set up offices all over the world, and they found that they didn't have the money to finish. And they were very much hands-on, and they got involved. Most of the work was being done out of India, but the head office was in London. The bank that they owed money to came to us to see whether we are interested to buy this company. So we went in to buy this company. The procedures were very simple because it was an offshore transaction. What we did after we bought the company was to change its corporate headquarters from London to New Delhi and make the London office into a marketing office. The Indian professionals who were working for this company were somewhat overawed by the European bosses, and they were constrained in their articulation of their views on how the company should be run. When we took over, we took the lid off and let them run. Fortunately for them, none of us had much IT experience. So they were kings, they ran, and they ran it very well. It started to make good profits. And then within a period of 2 years, we were approached by another British company, and they offered to buy us out. We had by that time listed on the second board in Delhi, and we were able to sell it at a handsome profit. We were the first IT company to cross 100 rupees. In those days, 100 rupees this was 20 years ago. And we sold and made a handsome profit. We were on the top of the world. Then we decided we'll put this money back into India and looked at something that we could invest in. And since the IT industry was growing so fast, we decided to invest in an IT training company. And we went together with a very large IT training company in Singapore and took the franchise for India from them. And they also became a partner. We had really done very little research on what we decided to do. We did what we wanted to do without real planning. And within the first year, maybe first 18 months, we established about 200 centers all over India. And we were on the top of the world, and we felt that we had this magic touch we brought from Singapore. But things began to go south. First, we had not really understood the market. We had not understood the products required for the Indian market. And we did not understand that the franchise system, which is very good for food, KFC or Pizza Hut or McDonald's, is really not that suitable for education system, which needed, if you wanted to have a franchise system, you should have a very big infrastructure of staff who can monitor and control this venture. So by the second year, we found that we were in deep trouble. And then we plodded on for some more years, but this was not going to succeed. So we decided to exit. Now, the challenges one faces in exiting a company or winding down an operation in India is staggering, is frightening. You see, it is not unusual in India for people to promote companies, collect money, and then decide they disappear. And these companies will ultimately close down. So there is a perception that any company that failed must have had, because the promoters were absconding with a lot of money. So you get no protection whatsoever when you want to wind down. This is one of the problems that India needs to face, because as it grows, there will be companies that don't succeed, there will be companies that succeed. But what happened was, anybody can go to first, anyone who owes you money will not pay you. That's the first thing that happens. Second, anyone who has any connection to do with you, he'll go to some magistrate down the road, and there are plenty, and get what do you call some charge against you to say, I've been victim of cheating. And that starts a whole series of problems and so on. And to get out of that is a major, major effort. But we decided we had to go through with it. We went through with it. Fortunately, India has got very good lawyers, very good accountants, and this could be sorted out. But it took a long time, and took a lot of, we had to bear a lot of stress while this was going on. But towards the later stages of that, we decided we are not going to be deterred by this one misstep, which was of our making, in the sense that we did not do enough study, we did not understand the market before investing this handsome profit that we had made in the previous venture. At that point of time, I had my own trading operation, and my trading partner in India, who happened to be a very large importer of newsprint, came to me to say that we should look at something called container freight stations. I'd never heard of this. This is basically in India, when containers come into the port, they are taken to us. They are evacuated, taken to a separate installation, owned, not by the government, but private individual, where it is discharged, staffed, distributed, and so on. So he felt that this was, it's a port-related logistics company. And he felt that there was tremendous scope for this, because the Bombay port was expanding, and a whole lot of things are going to happen in this sector, so we should go in. This time, having learned a lesson in the previous venture, we appointed somebody to take a good look at it. And they did a very good market study. The market study ascertained the viability of the project. It said it could be viable. But we had to apply for land, and we went to the State Industrial Development Corporation, SID. Before that, I went to see the Minister for Commerce in Maharashtra, who welcomed me with, gave me a very good welcome, and said, this is an industry which is not being developed, and your effort to go into this is laudable, and we all support. So I gathered together, because just a small group like ours could not fund, and this was an infrastructure group, could not find the resources to fund a huge project like this. So I got together a Singapore consortium comprising of various large groups, including a subsidiary of the GLC, subsidiary of the Port of Singapore. And they were very enthusiastic, and we gave them a management contract. Because we didn't know the business, we gave them a management contract. But as things would happen in India, it took 2 years for the land to be allocated. 2 full years. Because there was, even though it was from SIDCO, there were many problems, and we were given one piece of land and we paid for it, and then they said, oh no, you can't have this land because it's too close to water, and there is some law which says that it must be so many kilometers away from water, and therefore it was taken back. Another piece was given and said, oh no, this was actually designated to Punjab State Warehousing Corporation, and so that it was taken back. Finally we got it. But what happened in the meanwhile was that my good friends from the GLC felt that we were going nowhere. 2 years have wasted, still land not uncertain. So they withdrew. They said, no, we will not. They would go to Chennai where they could get it much faster. So I told them that that's wrong. That's a mistake because Bombay is much, much larger port and much more active, and they should not go. But they decided to go. And they were very sure these four, fellows getting together with some others, will not be stupid enough to go into this project, which is fairly capital intensive. But I thought I should prove them wrong. So we assembled a team, partly from Singapore, partly from India, management team with knowledge on logistics. And when we finally, after 2 years, got the piece of land, we went to build this warehouse on a 36-acre site in Navi Mumbai. That was in 1998, first one. We had been established 4 years before that. So it was our first operation, but we got on to a good start because there was only one other really good modern container freight station, and that is owned by Maersk, which was for a dedicated for their company. For a general listing, we were the first. So we had the first mover advantage, and we did very well. Today, after 12, 13 years, we have got about 5 CFSs, 4 ICDs. ICDs are internal container depot with rail connection, and 17 cold stores. We have been able to build this with the profits that we did, and we have sunk it all back in, apart from, of course, paying the shareholders some dividend and so on. But when you do it properly, it can be done. And the logistics operations that we have proven that. But first you must have some guts, you must be prepared to take risk, but then it can be done. But there are problems that one faces as you go along. Maybe I'll mention, I'll mention three areas which cost us problems. The first one, as I mentioned, delays. You never know when you're going to get a decision, and sometimes it takes so long, and in our case, we lost a partner because of the delays. And there is really no way of expediting the process unless you get into a mistake. One of the things we have learned is try not to cut corners, because then that will come on you sometime later. It will catch up with you. So it's better to do things in the open. But eventually it will happen. When we decided that we will go in, we knew that this was a slow process. None of us were dependent on the success of this to survive. So that gave us some strength. We could survive on our own, but this was going on. It eventually became a success. Today, in that process, we have the cold chain. We are the largest in the country. In the CFS and the rail operation, we are among the first 3. So we have been able to build this up in a relatively short time, 15 years or so, because of the fact that the industry was growing, the international trade was growing, India was opening up, and we benefited. Now, coming back to the question of problems, challenges, I think I mentioned to you the delays, which is something that one needs to take into account when you do your cost. The second one is what you might call the cost of funds, it is very, very high. And if you decide that you want to borrow offshore, then of course you must look at the exchange rate, the rupee, and the situation as well. One needs to have a certain amount of resources lined up, and that had to be in place if you want to expand. We decided fairly early in 2005 to list the company, and that helped because that means the source of public funds was available. I think we have maintained a very good dividend, and therefore we have 48,000 shareholders, out of which about 20 to 25% are foreign institutions. Then we also have retail sort of thing. So whenever we want to tap funds, if we do not mind diluting, then there is a source. The other problem, which is dogging the country, is not only for us, is the problems faced when you want to buy land. This is a major problem in India. And in the case of the CFS, we need 25 to 30 acres, which is a big piece of land. And first, to establish the ownership is the problem, because you never know, some member from some branch of the family will turn up, and then he will come to you after you have paid the deposit to say, no, I refuse to sell this land unless you get my consent. Then you check and you find that it is true that he's actually some distant relative. There's a claim to the land. So what normally people do is about 5 generations, you go back to see whether there is land. Now, after getting the land, the next big problem is the conversion of the land, because most of this land, even if it's not cultivated, is designated as agricultural land. So what you have to do is to get it converted to industrial land, something called CLU, conversion of land use. This, as you may guess, is a major problem, and then it's all sorts of problems. Fortunately, we stumbled on a solution, and that was this: that the seller must get all approvals and sell us the land as converted land, which means some delays, which means a much higher cost. But it is much better to do that than you buy agricultural land and you try to convert, because you get into a whole series of problems. So what we do now is we ask them, can you get conversion? You get conversion for us? Tell us how much it costs, what you pay, who you pay, we are not bothered. We just want your final price, we take it from you. And that works. So we have solved the problem. Now, these are problems that we face. But I think the biggest challenge that anyone going to India, any investor going to India, on a broader picture, is this big struggle that's going on between the political system and the economic requirements. Because the economy needs to be, certain reforms need to be in place. But these cannot happen because of political compulsions. Because, like yesterday, or the day before, there was a report in our papers that, I think today, that government was going to sort of initiate reforms to insurance, telecoms, and defense, bring in foreign capital, raise the amount, and so on. I'm fairly certain in my mind that it will not see the light of day, because when it goes onto the floor of the parliament, there will be such rumpus, such total chaos, that you cannot really pass a legislation. Someone might Some of my colleagues will remember that we had some Indian parliamentarians as our guests. And I raised this question. I said, how do you expect democracy to work if you don't allow the legislature to function? So the response from them was, how else can we stop it? This is the only way we can stop it. In other words, they are not interested in the process, in the democratic process. They want to get their way. But this is something that one needs to look at very carefully, because if you are an investor, you are a telecoms investor, and you want to go in, what do you do? How long do you wait? But what normally happens is you wait long enough, some window will slowly open somewhere, unobtrusively, and you are vigilant enough and you notice it, you enter. States, for instance, you can work through some of the states. Here I may digress a little, talk about two successful states, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. Gujarat has got strong political leadership and they get through what they want to do. Tamil Nadu has got, in my view, not that strong political leadership, but it has excellent civil service. Many years ago, one of our leaders took a delegation and when we went to the south, and we were talking about which are the states that one should support. And everybody enamored by Chandrababu Naidu, because he carries the PC and he can quickly tell you facts and figures, rattle it out, because he has access to that. So everybody was impressed. Modern, he was going to start cyber guard and so on. But this, our distinguished leader told us, look at the civil service. You have, in Tamil Nadu, you've got a chief minister who's covered with a blanket and sunglasses, never opens his mouth. But the civil servants are extremely good. The other side, you've got a chief minister who talks, and civil servants are completely dumb. He said, who will you take a risk with? And his advice was, look at what happens in Tamil Nadu. And that has proven to be. Those of you who read Economist will have seen the article on Tamil Nadu a couple of months back, which was very complimentary. And my fear is that where is political leadership, that is driving, there's a problem that one day the leadership changes and everything turns upside down. So that is the problem. Now, I talked about the political compulsions. I must say, I'm not trying to say this is implied criticism on democracy. I mean, average countryman of mine from Singapore would say, why do you need so much of democracy? You should have some sort of little bit of a guided democracy that would be more effective. East Asia has done well with controlled democracy. I must just make 2 points. I feel democracy has done well for India for 2 reasons. One, it has kept the country together. Its deeply diverse communities have been able to adjust to each other through democracy. I remember Winston Churchill, when India was being given independence, made a statement saying that I will not preside over the dismemberment of the British Empire. He actually also meant dismemberment of India, because everybody expected India to break up, linguistic states and everything else. But it did not, because of the democratic system. The second gain of democracy is the fact that a voice was given to almost 30% of the people who had no voice. They were the deprived, backward classes, Dalits, whatever you call them. And they got a voice, and now you hear the voice, loud and clear. But the problem is, it stifles movement, because there's so much of talk, so much of noise, and so on. But the wise will try and go through this with some sort of some trepidation, but at the same time, look at it from the point of view of long term. If you have other alternatives, you take the other one. But if you feel like the car manufacturers or power people or the larger industries, you feel you cannot ignore 1.2 billion market, then you must find a way to stay in this system. So, with all the many difficulties that you face, you may ask the question, why did a small group like you, 4 people, 4 shareholders, stay in India? Why didn't you look at Singapore? I can tell you 2 reasons again. One is that I do not think we could have built, I'm referring to the logistics industry, we could have built something of that size, of that depth in any of the modern countries of Southeast Asia, Singapore, Thailand, Kuala Lumpur. It would have been much more costly, the competition would have been much keener, and we could not have grown the way we did because India grew very fast in that sector. The second, even more significant, is the fact that we were able to do this on our own. In other words, with just the major promoters and our consortium of shareholders, without the blessing or without the interference of any godfather. We didn't have to go to a mayor, we didn't have to go to a party secretary, we didn't have to go to any godfather or ministers. In politics of the country, I mean politicians of the country, we were known to them and we know them, but never interfered. So I find this a very key element in a smaller group's growth. Now, let me make, I'm sorry I exceeded my time, but let me just make one point. Maybe just before that, I wanted to say that ISIS is doing a study under Dr. Amit Tandupale to survey the reaction of those who invested in India, those who are intending to invest in India, or those who have run away from, or gone away from India saying that this is a terrible place. We're doing a survey and a report will be, ISIS is doing this, and I think Professor Khan and Amit Tandu will look out. There is a section of strategies. This I will leave to my betters and my elders, Professor Srivastava and Dr. Narayan. I will not deal with that. But I want to make just one point. And that is this. There is no dearth of bad news on India. A middle-level officer being sent to India to study investment potential is, by the time he arrives in India, at least 25% sure. The percentages are mild. After reading the sensational stories of rape, scams, and political paralysis, that he will not want to invest. The 25% takes a quantum leap by the time he gets out of the Mumbai airport and reaches the first traffic light, because he will see this woman carrying a scrawny child with matted hair and running nose, knocking at your window. So he's sure this is not the place he wants to invest. And he's sure he doesn't want his company to invest because he's scared he might be posted there. So he makes sure that this doesn't happen. I'm not giving this as a fantasy, this story about knocking on the window. It is the truth. And I know many Singaporeans who are put off by such a thing. The greatest challenge facing a foreigner trying to do business in India is coming to terms with the country itself. If he is a mature person, he will not be perturbed by the sights and the noise. essential for anyone wanting to do business in a country to develop an empathy in that country and understand its uniqueness. India has a complex culture which will take time for anyone to understand. The country itself does not bother whether you understand it or not. It doesn't matter to them whether you think badly or you think well. They go on. A friend of mine in Bombay told me that India is part of this planet but not part of this world. There is some element of truth in it. India's national bird is the peacock. The peacock spreads its plumes and dances when there is thunder and lightning. I think it is time for it to dance. Thank you.